Hi guys, welcome to the attic of the Glennon House. I'm Lander Rourke.
I'm Janae Shirley.
And today we wanted to give you one very useful tool that is incredibly helpful for breaking out of cycles that you have not figured out how to get past. A lot of people have things that they desire to move into in their lives, but they just can't seem to get over this hump to get there. They go to a certain point and then they just seem to go back into old patterns. But when you learn how to proactively and intentionally prioritize your life based on what your goals are, it's such a helpful tool to line up what you're actually doing and see if it is in line with where you want to go. So the first thing that we want to do as we're going towards this is decide, where am I going? So as we go through this process, definitely pray about it. Invite the Lord into it. You can do this same process whether it's for your whole life or for a season of your life. I'd recommend starting out with just doing it for a season of your life. And what I mean by that is, where do I want to go in this season? Whether that's externally, your job or your circumstances, or it's like internally, what do I want to become internally? And then just deciding that, writing it out on paper, writing out your dreams, your visions, your desires of where you want to go to. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think just having a vision helps you be proactive in your day-to-day life going towards what you want, because a lot of times we repeat cycles because we don't have something that we want to go towards. So yeah, just reiterating what he's saying.
So again, I would encourage you to actually write this stuff down. The clearer it is laid out, the more that you can actually visualize it, especially like based on memory, just thinking back to what your piece of paper says, the easier it is to just keep it straight in your head. So the next thing to do after you decide where you're going, and that's kind of like, if you imagine your life is a map, you're dropping a pin to where you actually want to go to. And then next thing is, how do I get there? Super simple question, but like, what are the actual things the turns that I can make in my life that would actually get me from here to there? Because this problem, this cycle of your life is basically existing because you may or may not know where you're going, but the decisions that you're making based on the priorities that you have come up with are not in line with the goal. They're actually leading you in 4 left turns. So everybody already has priorities. That may surprise you, but your priorities are simply what you do anyway. So whatever you spend your time on, whatever you spend your money on, that actually shows you what your priorities are by default. What we're doing here is intentionally making new priorities to move in a new direction. So as you determine, how do I get there, based on what your vision is, based on what your destination is, you'll come up with priorities or steps that will get you from here to there. So an example of this would be, a friend of mine recently moved back into town. In the past, when he would be in town, his life would quickly revert back to this one pattern, this one cycle, where he'd just kind of be overspent with tons of different relationships, and he didn't get to spend time with the few relationships that were important to him. He wouldn't save money. He'd kind of just come into town for a particular reason, but wouldn't accomplish any of those reasons. So as he came here and he was voicing this to me, we just decided to go through and make some priorities. And he decided that the priorities of his life were while he's in Orlando, it would be to school and work. That would be number 1, because he was here to go to school and to save money for the next season of his life. The second thing was these 8 core relationships that he wanted to invest in. It was people that were specifically here. He really wanted to invest in those instead of getting spread really thin. It was just these very particular people. And the last would probably be maintaining his spiritual health. He had gotten into a really good place while he was out of town, and coming back here, he wanted to make that a priority to kind of stay in that zone. So we listed these out, and then just having something even this simple clearly laid out for him, then when options come up in his day-to-day life, he's able to look at those options and put them next to his list of priorities and say, is this actually in line with these steps to get me to where I'm going? Mm-hmm. Where he's going is kind of encompassed by this. He may have a broader vision. I'm not super clear on that for him, but so for example, if he is invited to go to a theme park tomorrow, he's able to look at this and say, well, do I have school or work that I need to do tomorrow? Is that all done? If it's checked off, then he might consider it. If it's not, then he'll just say, no, I say no to that theme park thing. Mm-hmm. If it's next, he'd go down to here, and if he's already finished with school, he'll go down to his core relationships. Is the person inviting him one of his core relationships? If so, then he can say yes to it because it's in alignment with his priorities. If not, it actually gets bumped down further on the list. If all these things are checked off, then he can move on to the next thing. But if he hasn't felt like these things are satisfied, and if you look at these are actually kind of, they're not, the school and work one's pretty defined. You know, if he's finished all of his homework and worked all of his hours, that one's clear. But as far as core relationships or spiritual health goes, those are a little bit more vague and just kind of require a self-check. Like, how do I feel about this? Do I feel like that's satisfied? No, yes, I don't know. So that's that example. And again, you just kind of have it in front of you, and then you're able to assess, are the options in front of me in line with where I'm going, or are they in conflict with where I'm going? If they're in conflict, then I'm going to learn to use my powerful no and say no to them so that I can say yes to where I'm actually going.
Yeah, something that happened to me recently was a little different, where, you know, my overall calling and my vision for my life is the Lord has just showed me that I am passionate and I'm called to facilitating people into encountering God. So that's either through healing at the Glennon House, through some of the sessions that we do, that's through leading worship. Those are all practical things. So my overall vision is I want to be a facilitator of people encountering God. And so that's probably my number one priority, is stepping into that. So leading people into encountering God. Another thing that I prioritize that's down on the list is also being able to financially pay my bills. So financially stable. So to give you an example, because I'm saying yes to my overall vision and saying yes to my higher priority than my lower priority, I had about a month ago an opportunity to say yes to a little side job. I was going to do some online teaching that could make more money. And one of the things that I had to ask myself was, am I passionate about this other than being financially stable? Because this is my number one priority. And if I were to say yes to the side job, it would actually distract me from my number one priority. And so it was cool. So I was like, you know what? That doesn't align with my overall calling and vision for my life. So I'm actually going to say no to that, because I'm going to say yes to my higher priority, because I don't want to be distracted. And it was really cool because within a couple of weeks, the Lord actually brought a side job for me to step into something that I'm actually passionate about in my vision that met that second priority as well. So it's cool when you say yes to your overall vision, how some of the lower priorities actually are met by default. So
yeah, that's awesome. And really, you, like we said, you spend time on what you prioritize. And so many people we encounter, they're like, they want to grow deeper with God, but then they just don't have time for it. When you do things like this and actually lay it out and decide, this is what I'm going after, and so here's how I'm going to get there, it changes everything, and it puts you back into a place of being a powerful person. And just another encouragement to go with it, as you're doing this, instead of thinking of it as something that, I got to do this or else I'm in trouble, just think of it as you're growing in a process. And each time that you say yes to these things and no to the other things, you're actually getting stronger in that thing.
Yeah.
It's all about that going from glory to glory, getting stronger and stronger in these things, getting healthier and healthier. Just think of it as you're building up this thing instead of just afraid that you're gonna do something wrong. I think maintaining that positive outlook is really helpful too.
Yeah, so be a powerful person. You were created to not just live in the mundane, but to say yes to God's dreams and visions. And so, yeah, find your powerful yes.
Yeah, thanks guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe.